This episode is sponsored by UPMC Elite Orthopedics. UPMC Elite Orthopedics is proud to support youth sports across our region and proud to sponsor Scholastic Mirror on the Altoona Mirror YouTube channel. To learn more about their board-certified orthopedic surgeons and the wide range of orthopedic conditions they treat, or to schedule an appointment in one of their facilities in Hollidaysburg or Bedford, visit upmcaltoona.com/ortho or call 814-889-3600.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the 7th edition of Scholastic Mirror, here our winter/spring sports show here on our YouTube channel. We could have called this Weather World sequel. We could have called this Rainy Day, Monday, whatever, Tuesday. But it actually was nice weather here the last couple of days, and I am joined by the always sunny dispositioned Mike Boydham and Andy Stein. My name is Scott Franco. Our producer-director, Dan Eisenberg's behind the camera. And really, if we just wanted to sit here and talk about games played over the last couple of weeks, Mike, Andy, and I wouldn't have much to talk about because everything's been rained out.
And then when there is a day where it's sunny, everybody plays.
Yeah, but if you saw your mirror recently and you saw 4 O.J. Simpson stories in the paper, you can sit there and go, wow, it must have really rained that day. But the first thing we're going to talk about is softball. Mike's had a couple of the teams that he's seen recently that we're going to be probably talking about in the postseason. Do we want to talk about that first, or go to the...
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Some of the teams that have gotten some games in are Claysburg. Claysburg is undefeated so far. The softball team, I think they have a great chance to possibly go to states this year. They fell in the state semifinals last year, a heartbreaker. They actually, one of their games they lost last year was to Everett, and then Everett won the state championship. And also the Everett girls, a little bit outside of our area, but they have a great chance to also get back to the state championship. They have Chloe Price, who played in our Mirror Classic basketball game recently. Unfortunately, Claysburg and Everett don't play each other this year, even though they're in the same conference. But that should be an interesting journey to watch those two teams, small school teams that have a chance to do something in the postseason. As far as the higher area teams, the last few years Central Cambry's been undefeated.
I was just about to ask about it. Is it Coach Ruddick up there?
Yeah, and Cammie Kamzik went to Notre Dame. She's graduated. So they kind of have 3 pitchers that have kind of stepped into her role, the 2 Ruddick girls and Kiera Link. And they just recently got a win over Glendale, which is a nice win. I know Andy's covered Glendale some over the years. They have a nice program up there despite being such a small school.
And their coach, is that someone when you were up there?
Yeah, Bruce Vershak, he's ran a tremendous program over there the last few years. It seems like the last, 10 years, it's probably getting close to 10 years where Glendale softball has been really good. And probably, other than wrestling, probably softball has been the number one sport that you think of when you think Glendale sports. So yeah, it's outstanding, and they're really taking control of the ICC right now. And
they really go from Riley Bass pitching to now Maddie Peterson.
Well, Maddie Peterson has been the pitcher, but Riley Bass had the home run record.
Okay, that's
but
she was really good.
Something I really respect from Glendale is they have scheduled games up this year.
bigger
They
team.
played Central Cambria. They lost that game, but they've just beat Central, who's a higher classification school, 3-2. And these, win or lose, these games are going to help Glendale once it gets to the 1A playoffs. So yeah, Glendale, Claysburg, 2 teams to watch out in those 1A playoffs.
And then also you said Central, and Central Hollidaysburg just played recently, and Mike's going to have something on that. But Central has a really good pitcher, which I'm going to talk about later here in the show. But as far as the players surrounding her, I mean, do they have a chance, do you think, make some noise? And are they 3A?
And Central has made a run the last couple of years, but they have struggled once it gets to playoffs. It's just really tough field because you have Bald Eagle area, you have
Center County softball.
I mean, there's just really good teams out there, and even in the Mountain League that has joined into the Laurel Highlands, Clearfield always has a good softball team. Tyrone has gotten better. So there's just a lot of challengers out there in softball, but Central has been right up there with all the other teams. And yeah, Madison Kennedy hit a home run against Hollidaysburg in a game they lost, and she has done a good job this year. They're not quite as deep as they have been in the past couple of years, but they have some young players that are figuring it out, and like I said, the competition they're facing is only going to help them.
In Hollidaysburg, which we're going to bring Mike, we're going to have the interview here in a second, but Hollidaysburg's a team that, I mean, just they have had really good power pitching over the last couple of years, and if they could just get past that, you know, they play those Center County teams, but there's only one other team with them in the district, Central Mountain, so they just got to be able to get by Central Mountain. But we're going to show you a tape right now. Mike recently got to have an interview with Coach Mike Harris, who's back this year. He was the coach at Hollidaysburg. He left. Coach Heather Perry left, and now Mike's back. And here's what Mike...
And fresh off of a run to the state playoffs and a win in the state playoffs with Claysburg Kimmel basketball, he gets right into softball.
He has no social life whatsoever. He goes right from teaching to coaching and then back to teaching.
And we talked to him a little bit about how all the rainouts that have happened kind of have impacted, and how it's quite not such a huge problem in softball.
Here, take a look.
Coach, when you got all these rainouts and everything like that, is it tough to play like 4 games a week? How does that affect the way you approach things without getting the practice time and all that stuff?
I just had that conversation with Homer Delatcher, our athletic director, the other day. It can pose problems, but sometimes the way kids are, when you get in the middle of the season, they just want to play games. You can practice on things before the games, maybe go over a couple things here and there, maybe get some swings, maybe bat longer in the batting cages that take as much field work. It depends. You can work around things, and sometimes kids just want to go.
Is it an easier thing in softball because the pitchers don't, they can throw more innings than a baseball pitcher can?
Yes, it's a natural motion, that underhand motion, so they can go every single game. So that actually alleviates a lot of issues as far as pitching goes.
And just what do you want to see by the end of the season from your team?
End of the season, we just want to be battling for, we're going to be in the District 6 championship game because there's only 2 teams, us and Central Mountain. So we just want to be playing our best softball by the end of the season. Around May 14th, that's our last game. We want to play our best softball by then.
And then switching over to baseball a little bit, because so Mike's going to explain a little bit to you. The weather affecting baseball and softball are 2 completely different things because of the pitching and everything. And as Mike and Andy can tell you in here, I mean, we get about 8, 9, 10 baseball games a night, and then when they start getting rained out, ADs are running out of dates to do that. But good thing they started in March, Andy, so they had all these days to add up. They were
It's going to rain
in April.
anyway. You're going to get jammed in late April and May anyway.
Andy doesn't want to see them playing in February. That's why. But anyways, Mike's got some thoughts there on the stuff these guys have to do. Mike played baseball, so Mike knows a little bit more. The weather they've had to deal with around Central PA.
And you're also not just dealing with the weather. You're dealing with games that are already scheduled compactly because, like this weekend, the Curve Classic is happening where teams are playing multiple times in a day sometimes, and these are regularly scheduled games. So I covered a Central Hollidaysburg baseball game recently, and it was 11-10 because neither team really wanted to commit to a pitcher pitching a long time because they wanted to save pitching for later in the week. And so sometimes you have to choose, like, are we going to go for the win in this game? And if we do, we better get it because we're not going to have pitching later in the week when we need it. So, I mean, whenever you played baseball too, Andy, did you ever think like, hey, this is the game we need because it's our rival game or something, and we'll just wing it the rest of the week?
It is, well, I mean, before I got to Mo Valley, we had some really good pitchers where and pitching really wasn't a problem. But yeah, I mean, later in my career, we weren't nearly as good when we kind of pick and chose. We should throw our ace this game because we have a pretty good chance of winning this game. So.
Well, Mike, what's the rest like? If you pitch on a Monday, is it how many innings before you can pitch again?
It goes by innings and in the week.
Okay, because I know with like Little League, if you throw over 20 pitches, you have to have this many days rest. And if you have 40, is it similar to that?
And now in baseball, you are limited to your 100 pitches. Now in playoffs, it goes up to 105. But you are limited by pitches as well as innings now. And
I think you need 4 days rest if you throw the whole 100.
And I remember when I worked at the Sentinel in Lewistown, we covered Mount Union Base was really good, and their coach down there, Nick Imperlo, used to sit there and say, Scotty, when you get to states, you need 2 good pitchers. Because you go Monday, Thursday, and if everything works out, then you have a couple guys that can do maybe 1 or 2 innings if your other guy struggles. But some of these guys are getting 4 or 5 games.
Well, that's the ironic thing. We talk about in high school football, you play once a week, and that's pretty much how it is. In high school baseball and some of these other sports, it gets spread out where it gets really manipulated once the playoffs start, where a team could have around a 500 record going into the playoffs because they're not deep pitching staff, but they have 2 really good pitchers, and then once it gets to the postseason, they can dominate because it's spread out enough that they can just lean on those 2 guys and not have to go into a third pitcher.
But then you get teams like Central that had their third pitcher would be number one on most other teams. Tell everybody what's this conversation we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so we talked to AJ Hoenstine, Central's coach, a little bit about how the differences, in baseball when you do have to go through stretches like this. And we also tried to get him to give some tips on some of these other schools on how to keep the field ready, because Central always seems to be able to play. I know
who's the other school you always talk about too?
Bellwood does too.
Yeah.
But it was at Chestnut Ridge the other day, but still somehow Central and Chestnut Ridge got a baseball game in when we were like, everything's off today. But somehow Central always finds a way to play, and we asked AJ about that. Okay, Coach, with all the rain and everything, how does that affect when you have a pitching staff and you might play 4 games in 1 week and stuff?
We really like to take the old Casey Stengel approach and believe that it's going to rain every next day, so we're going to throw our best and try to win the games when we can. Obviously, we're going to try to be smart, but we're going to win the day, and we'll worry about tomorrow when the next day comes. In Central Pennsylvania, you never know. We always tell the kids, control what you can control, and obviously they want to play, but if you can't, you'll get them in later.
Do you have a lot of depth with that, whereas sometimes kids will see the mound that wouldn't normally see the mound in varsity?
I think so. We try to get kids bullpens through the week. The tough thing with high school baseball is, and we really try, and we've been fortunate where we have 2 or 3 pitchers that might play first base or, but they're not playing the left side of the infield. And, that's tough on a kid's arm if he's pitching and playing shortstop, pitching, playing third base. And we really try to, steer away from that. If we know, our top 3 pitchers, we try to have them be pitchers first. Obviously, if they're stud hitters, we're going to find their way in the lineup somewhere, but we really try to focus on that with our team.
And just over the years, it seems like you guys, and maybe like Bellwood, have the fields where somehow, even when the weather's not so great, you guys somehow get your games in. Is there a special secret you'd like to share with anybody on how you get your field ready?
There's a special sauce we put on the field to get it ready. Now you can tell by the way the wind blows up here, it's going to dry quick, and our kids take a lot of pride in taking care of the field. As you can see, what they're doing right now, that we're able to play when a lot of other people aren't.
Okay, no more weather talk because I'm not as pretty as Christy Shields was and everything, and I just can't garner that kind of market share with competing weather systems and anything. But we're going to do our new favorite segment now for our show, the jumping off the page. I'm going to let Andy go first. Andy, you're This is stuff that's going on in the spring. In case you're new to our show, which you shouldn't be new to it, because we like you to don't forget to do that like thing that Dan always tells us about. But anyways, this is stuff that's in the mirror during the week that you may have missed and everything, but we still think is pretty important.
All right, we haven't done a whole lot with tennis so far, but I'm going to do it right here. Tyrone Tennis got their first win this week. I've always been a fan of Tyrone Tennis. Randy Irvin used to like to stop at least once a year to go cover their tennis matches, but they beat Juniata 5-2 earlier this week. They got singles wins from Noah Newland, Rocky Romani. That was a
great football name.
That was their kicker. Yeah. How about this name? Alex Schock.
Yeah,
that's a good name too. Doubles wins from Ethan Dasher and Logan Harpster and John Eisberg and Elijah Knapp. Eisberg. Is that
in relation to our producer director?
No relation. No.
Yeah, but there must be Eisberg's then all over Tyrone.
Hey, wow, there's Eisberg's up my way too.
And that was their first win, correct? Right?
That was their first win. Good for them.
Random note about that. His wife, Dawn Irvin, used to work at Gardner's Candy, and when my mom ran Joy Beans across the street, she does sometimes bring us over chocolate. So
nice.
Maybe she probably knows where the Mirror Building is, like 301 Cayuga Avenue.
That's right.
I think you can mail chocolate, can you not?
Sure,
why
not?
Yeah. Michael, what is your jumps off the page?
Well, the thing I want to talk about is actually not something that has appeared in the paper, but it's kind of gotten through the cracks of the paper. It's stuff that we wouldn't normally write in a story, but I just kind of feel like it needs to be brought attention to a little bit. Just when you're at these games, whether you're a parent, whether you're a fan, whether you're a kid watching your friends play, just remember that there's little kids at these games. There's people are sensitive. They hear things, and not just to the umpires, to anybody. When you're yelling something, just remember to think outside of yourself. It's not just you and the person you're talking to. It's everybody around you hears these things, and sometimes what you're saying is not what should be said in a public forum. So just it's something I've noticed throughout the seasons, and it seems to be the volume seems to be going higher and higher as time goes on, and just be aware that you're in public and other people can hear you that maybe don't need to hear some of the things that you're saying.
Because in college and the pros, a high school kid shouldn't have to tune out stuff that's being yelled at him at a high school sport.
You represent your whole family when you're there, so Mike's right. You got to remember that.
Okay, and our last thing was jumps off the page is track and field, and I know Mike and I have been here a while, so Andy's been here a couple of years. We can remember Central track and field used to be not very. They used to remember they would hardly have enough people.
They wouldn't have to score. They couldn't score.
Yeah, they didn't have enough kids to compete. And in the spring, Central baseball is always good. Central softball is always good. But now I want to give kudos to Blake Over and his staff because they're good now. Just recently, the Bedford Invitational was pretty huge. 13 teams. Central boys won it. Central girls took fifth. And here's what's even more impressive, and I learned this again when I was down in Lewistown covering track. Central only won one event. Robert Long Garrison won the 110 hurdles, but because of their depth and the amount of numbers, they're getting the seconds, the thirds, the fourths, fifths, what have you. If they're scoring 8, scoring 6, and they're getting points. and that's a big deal. And then the girl that Mike mentioned earlier, Madison Kennedy, she was the Mirror's Athlete of the Week recently. She went 2-0 for the softball team. And then, you know what? Hey, I bet you I could throw the javelin. So Blake Over and the other coach get her. She wins the javelin. I bet you it hasn't even been 2 years. She hasn't even been throwing the javelin in 2 years. That's how good she is.
And she finished third in the igloo.
Yeah, she won it with a 118 throw at the Bedford thing. And just, again, not to mention just them, but I was looking like pole vaulting, which a lot of people pay attention to. Altoona has a kid named Nathan Lutz. He's going to Penn State on a pole vault scholarship. If you read, Buck Frank does the Mirror Track and Field Honor Roll every Monday morning's paper. I guarantee you no other high school or paper around here that I know of puts in the track honor roll the way Buck does. And the coaches help out by sending stuff in. But Nathan Lutz, 14-0, and I looked at second. Hollidaysburg has 2 kids going 13-0, Caleb Trinewski and Jack Singer. So next time you're looking at that and you look at the paper, take a look at those honor roll and everything, because there are some impressive numbers in there. And again, the pole vault. I've seen some people where the pole vault, if they go 9 or 10, that's pretty good. These kids are going 14-0.
I think Nathan's cleared 15 in indoor track.
Yeah,
so we'll have to see if he can get even higher as the season goes on.
Yeah, and Altoona's had a girl years ago. In fact, she's grown up married. Her name was Mulhern. She went to Penn State on a pole vault scholarship.
I'm trying to wrap my head around just playing 2 sports in the spring, like just play baseball or softball, and then also go to track. I mean,
but they're young; they have energy.
Yeah, they're young. They have way more energy than weight. But like, where do you find that time? It's impressive.
Hey, and we don't talk about it because it's during football season. But Crosby Dennis is doing it for Hollidaysburg with tennis and golf as well
in the fall, right? It's in both fall. Yeah, so she plays golf one day and then tennis next day. But she's ninth grader. She's young. She has energy. If you're tired at 34, imagine being tired at 35 and being 58. Yeah. How tired I am. That's why this is filled with Pepsi Zero.
Plus, you've had to chase 4 kids around.
You don't have to chase anybody around there. There's nobody home anymore. But hey, this isn't about me. But that's going to wrap up. We didn't think we'd be able to get enough to do with all this weather talk and everything. But for Andy Stein, for Mike Boyd, and for Dan Eisenberg behind the camera, I'm Scott Franco. We will see you on the 8th edition in a couple weeks of Scholastic Mirror here on YouTube TV.